the hypotenuse of a triangle is directly opposite to opposite the right angle of the triangle. So that's the hypotenuse. I've already labeled that just so this is a little bit easier. So the hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle. Okay? It's also the longest side, so that's a nice indicator of which side of the triangle it is. Now, once we've labeled the hypotenuse, we want to make sure that we know which is the opposite side and which is the adjacent side. So we're going to use the Greek letter theta as our angle that we're going to use for this particular context. So as you can see, I've already labeled the triangle, one of the acute angles, theta, and it's at the bottom on the right hand side. Now, the opposite side, very similar to the hypotenuse, the opposite side of the triangle is directly opposite theta. So what you will see is directly opposite of theta. We refer to that as the opposite side. Okay? Now, there's only one side of the triangle that's left, and that's the adjacent side. So, the adjacent side of the triangle is the side that is right next to the angle that we're interested in, or that theta. First of all, we should be able to identify our hypotenuse. We know that it's directly across from the right angle, so I know I can label my hypotenuse there. It's also the longest side, so I'm pretty confident that my hypotenuse is right there. Now, once I label an angle, theta, okay, and that's the angle that we have right there. I've dragged the Greek letter theta to and just labeled it so that you can get used to the language. I want you to ask yourself which side is opposite, what side of the triangle is opposite to theta, and hopefully you responded that directly across from theta is this side right here. And I know that adjacent is right next to the angle that we're looking at. So that's a different orientation. We still have a hypotenuse, we have an opposite side and an adjacent side, which are really important, especially as we continue through this particular unit. And as we go through one more example of a triangle, a right triangle that is in a different orientation once again, we look, first of all, the first thing we need to do is identify the hypotenuse. Identifying the hypotenuse is easy, it's right there. It's directly across from the right angle. The next thing we do is oftentimes when we're talking about identifying the sides of a triangle, we have to have a mark. We have to have a particular spot that we're looking at, a particular angle. So I labeled one of my angles of my triangle right there, theta, and that gives me a context to put the opposite side and the adjacent side in. So again, the adjacent side, as simple as it is, touches the angle of interest, or that theta. The opposite side is directly opposite to that. And that's the introduction to the sides of the triangle. As we move further, this becomes really easy, and you'll be able to identify them quite quickly.